right in the middle of what could be considered one of the most dangerous moments in human history. A black bear climbed a fence and triggered a chain of events that could have brought the world closer to World War III. So how did a black bear almost cause nuclear war? Let's find out. Not going to do a big history lesson, but it's important for context. We go back to October in 1962. The United States and the Soviet Union are in the middle of the Cold War. Then, the Cuban Missile Crisis happens. The Soviet Union began placing missiles in Cuba, which is only about 90 miles from Florida. President John F. Kennedy announces a naval quarantine around Cuba. The US military goes on extremely high alert, DEFCON 2, which is one step below actual war. Basically, the United States is preparing for the possibility that a major war could break out at any moment. Nuclear bombers are ready, fighter pilots are ready, and guards at military installations are watching for anything that could possibly be Soviet sabotage. Everybody is tense. Everybody is looking for threats. And this brings us to the night of October 25th, 1962. So now let's go to a military installation in Duluth, Minnesota. Security is extremely tight. Guards are watching for anything suspicious. And that's when one of the guards notices something near the perimeter fence. It's dark, so he can't fully make out what it is. But whatever it is appears to be climbing the fence. And given everything going on at the time, the guard assumes he may be looking at a Soviet saboteur trying to get into the base. So he opens fire at the silhouette jumping the fence. And then he activates the sabotage alarm, which under normal circumstances is exactly what you want him to do. There's just one problem. The silhouette was not a Soviet saboteur. It was a black bear. And honestly, from the bear's perspective, none of this is weird. It's not like the bear knows what's going on in the world, and a fence is not exactly gonna stop one if it decides it wants to see what's on the other side. So eventually the men realized what had happened. The guard fired at a bear. The alarm was a mistake, and locally the situation could be corrected. Except by that point, the sabotage alarm had already been sent out to other military installations in the region. And about 200 miles away in Wisconsin, the alarm was about to become a very different issue. About 200 miles away, that signal reaches Volk Field in Wisconsin. And this is where the story takes a much more serious turn, because the alarm system at Volk Field had been wired incorrectly. Instead of receiving a sabotage warning telling them that there may be an intruder at another military installation, the base receives the scramble alarm. And that means get the pilots in the air. So pilots begin running to their F-106 Delta darts. The engines get started. The aircrafts begin getting ready for takeoff. And everybody there is reacting like the United States may have just entered World War III. Now, luckily, somebody finally realized that Volk Field got the wrong alarm. This was not an attack. There were no Soviet bombers coming. The scramble alarm had been triggered by mistake. But the pilots are already in their aircraft. The engines are running and they're about to take off. An officer gets into a vehicle and drives out onto the runway, flashing its headlights to get the pilot's attention, doing everything he can so they don't take off. And it works, and the jets never leave the ground. And World War III does not begin because of a black bear in Minnesota. But just think about the chain of events here. A bear climbs a fence. A guard shoots at the bear thinking it might be a Soviet saboteur. And then he sounds an alarm. A wiring mistake turns that into a scramble alert. Pilots believe the warning is real, and nuclear-armed interceptors start moving towards takeoff. All because a black bear was being a black bear. So did this black bear actually almost start World War III? If those airplanes did take off, that would not have automatically meant there's war. These pilots were air defense interceptors. They were not about to fly to Moscow and start dropping bombs on the Soviet Union. There were still other layers of command and a whole lot of things that would have needed to go wrong. And if a few more mistakes happened, then it's possible. And because several small failures started stacking up on each other, we can say that a bear almost started World War III. And the funniest part of this entire story is that everybody eventually figured out what happened, but the bear had absolutely no idea what was going on. So that's the story of the black bear that almost caused World War III. I hope you enjoyed it. If you know of any other animals in history that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember, nature is random and chaotic. I will see you next time.